It's Stacy. I disappeared for a little bit, and I apologize for doing that since Hurricane Ian or even before. As I see on so many people's pages who live not far from me, it's like, thank you so much for the texts and the phone calls and the caring, and I appreciate it. I truly do. And part of me, it sent my head, not the calls and the texts, but the entire situation, into not the most wonderful place. This has been quite an experience. It's not even my first natural disaster. It's not even my second. It's like there's the Northridge earthquake I was present for and didn't think I would survive. And I wasn't even that close to the epicenter. There was Hurricane Irma, hit very hard where we were. That was an experience. And then there's been, well, it doesn't matter. Here we are at Hurricane Ian. And it's just such an interesting experience for all the many repercussions and craziness and good things that come out and bad things, and just an examination of what the heck has happened to my life and who I am and where I am and all these things. So that's right. I think so too. We are okay. And so very fortunate. I'm supposed to say that too. So very fortunate. And I am. We live in Zone B. And as you can see, Riley's pretty complicated. So I have signed up for a special needs shelter. And there's good possibility I probably should have gone. The hurricane was going more north. And Riley needs a lot. And then it would have been myself and Riley and Ronan and the dog. I was not as prepared. I was less prepared than I've ever been for a hurricane. And John had to go to work, as he does. He works for a continuing care facility, residential facility, a CCRC. So he's got to be there. And as luck would have it, Ronan also works for a different CCRC as a server. So when you work for a CCRC, you are supposed to be available. And there all the time. But I had hoped to pull it all together and be in a safe place. And suddenly that hurricane changed. And Zone A had mandatory evacuation. And then Zone B had mandatory evacuation. We are Zone B. And my mother, she lives on the 9th floor, not far away, supposed to pack her bag. We'd agreed to this several times. And come over and stay here. Not her favorite place to have to sleep over. It's okay. And she didn't. She just didn't. She stayed put. And I didn't know what I should have done. And I stayed put. So my mom is paying for that. So be it. She's on the 9th floor of her building, and her elevator is fried. It's going to have to be replaced. And she really isn't in great shape for going up and down. So John and Ronan have been going there as often as they can, taking food and making sure she's okay. And her power came back before ours even, and she's fine. She has what she needs. It is what it is. But sadly, it's not just my mom stuck on the 9th floor. I'm seeing all sorts of posts of my 80-something grandfather stuck on a 25th floor. And there are so many people stranded in odd places. And it is not an emergency. That is not an emergency. We finally have the subsiding of the sirens, but the search and rescue went on, and Riley has his piano to entertain us all. Oh, and this is a muscle spasm. And Clonus, I call it his motor. Sorry, sweetie. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, honey. Take a sec. Oh, turning red. That's my hair you're pulling. Ta-da, ta-da. What was I talking about? Search and rescue. So many people have lost so much. We forget when you talk about living along the coast that this is paradise. It takes a lot of different elements to make paradise. It takes people with huge amounts of money and power and ability and money to spend, and it takes people who work so very hard for so very little, and everyone alike has lost. But when it comes to putting it back together, it's not all equal once again. So after this very, very long pandemic, we see I'm getting lost in all the things that are coming to my mind with what's happened. We have friends who have lost everything, their homes just washed away. We asked if we could help salvage. There's nothing to salvage, it's just gone. After the hurricane, my husband's work, that is a little bit more south, decided everyone should go home because they didn't really realize how bad it was everywhere else. And one of his coworkers went home and found that a tornado had followed the hurricane, and all that was left were a few cinder blocks on her home. And then the people that my son is in contact, some are huddling in their garages because there you go, that's the coolest place they have, and they haven't had power since the hurricane, and they don't have running water. Their visitor is the National Guard. Oh, and by the way, my son's school has been taken over by the National Guard, which is a very interesting thing. So I don't know how that will be handled in returning to school, but once again, school is put off and off after they've lost so much time with the pandemic. Now they're going to lose time with this and energy and just focus, and there'll be illness, and those kids who aren't back in school, so many of them don't have anywhere else to get food. It's just a crazy circumstance. And then when it comes to getting groceries, we have to go a whole bunch because you don't know if the grocery store is going to be open or closed. Trader Joe's just closed today for no known reason. They just did. Maybe there's no food left. And then the McDonald's. They'll raid one McDonald's, the employees take it to another McDonald's, somewhere they can actually open. And that was about the only place you could get food. When it comes to going to work, back to work, and John had returned and Ronan had to go help, I was scared to death because he's just 17 and he had to go through all these lights that were missing, and people forgot how to go through lights that weren't working. They were just racing through. I was terrified. And then when he went to work to serve, there weren't enough people. He actually served alongside the executive director and her husband. It's like, there's just craziness everywhere. And I feel lost because it takes so much energy and time to work with Riley. And I don't begrudge one moment of it. I feel bad for Riley. But it is so very much just to keep him going. And there was a time in my life when I was the first one out there to help and to be there. And I would make calls and check on other people. And here I am when the phone rang and the texting started when the hurricane was coming on. It was one emergency signal after another, and then a text, and then an email while we still had power. And here they would come, and they would come, and they would come. And I'm trying to take care of Riley, who was getting sick. And by the end of the hurricane, he was running 102.7. And I know Riley. He can go much farther than that on the temperature gauge, the thermometer. So here I am doing everything I can, and Ronan's helping me to keep him fed and everything he needs in the dark and the wind and the windows banging and clanging, and then family would call. And I appreciate that too. And then they would call Ronan's phone, and they're probably calling John's phone many miles away. And eventually we didn't even have power. And it's like, and other people would call, it's like, I only have 2 hands and they're for Riley. I'm sorry. I'm such a bitch. But I am. It's all I could do. And today I looked at my voicemails and they're full. And I didn't even have it in me to go through them. It's like all these emergencies, and then the school system and the county system and the emergency system and the boil water notice from BSU, on and on. And thank you, people who checked. And I'm doing what I can do. I promise. And then it's like, how could I possibly resent any of that? And here I am. There's so many people I didn't check on. Do they think I didn't care? I do care. And of course, there's like, oh my God, so many people I know are going through so much. And I'm not there and I'm not helping. And here's Riley. It is like, this is where my focus is. This is what I'm doing. I'm not the volunteer I was at one time. I'm not the person organizing. I'm getting through. I'm doing the best I can. And then and I couldn't get any data after a little while. And when people were calling, I didn't have enough phone power to continue. And I had to tell Ronan, stop, do not answer that phone. We will not be able to recharge. We will have no way of contacting your dad. We will have no way of contacting your grandmother who decided to stick it out on the 9th floor, which is such a mistake. But there she is. Oh, and by the way, she lost her week-old car. But hey, that's nothing. How lucky is she? She lost a week-old car. It's okay. It's okay. People lost lives. So there I am. I'm going a little nuts. And I'm going to come back from this